All right. Let's get down to email marketing. My name is Toby James. I'm the owner of Cats Cove Communications in the lovely little town of Perth, Ontario. Um, and I want to thank you for joining us, whether you're joining us live today or you intend to watch this later, and you may have picked this up as a recording. You may have found this years from now, somewhere in the far-flung corners of the internet. I want to thank you for joining, taking some time today to pay attention to the idea of email marketing. So we've got a lot of ideas to go through here with regards to email. The idea that you're here means that you understand that email isn't dead just yet, despite some prognostications from others. So we're going to go through some things here. So believe it or not, in 2021, there is an estimated 347 billion emails sent daily. Now, for some of us, that might seem like a lot. And for those of us that watch our inboxes flood, they won't be nearly as surprised. Of those 347 billion emails, keep in mind that means a handful of different things. That's emails from you to your family, working out the next vacations and things like that. That's emails between families and friends, but it's also a lot of what we're going to talk about today, which is branded emails and emails from businesses to subscribers and to other people like that. And so that makes up the 347 billion emails daily. Now, believe it or not, 2/3 of subscribers like to receive what we call branded emails. They like to receive emails from businesses and things like that. Now, if you're like me, your inbox is filled with them. And if you're also like me, you don't click on them all the time. Oftentimes, you end up going through and cleaning out those emails from a brand that you may have signed up for. And if you're still like me, you will eventually open some of those. There is a reason that we signed up in the first place. Maybe it was to get free something, right? Maybe it was to get a free download or 10% off or things like that. But ultimately, it's also there for you to be reminded. It's there as a touch point from the brand. And 2/3 of us actually enjoy receiving those branded emails. So as you craft your email marketing strategy, and as we talk about many best practices that I want you to think about, I want you to think about the emails that you open. And I want you to think about the emails that you don't open from those brands. And I want you to consider why you open them or why you don't open them. Now, we're going to go through, like I said, many steps and many suggestions with regards to best practices today. And some of those things that we're going to talk about may hit with you, and it might be a reason that you do open it. It might be as simple as it was time. Somebody's in your inbox for 12 months for a purchase you make once a year. But the good news is, for that person that's in your inbox, or that business or brand that's in your inbox, they've been there that whole time, and that's why they get your business. So I want you to consider that from your own standpoint. Before we jump into any of this stuff, I do want to talk about the idea of canned spam, the idea of spam in general. Okay, so these are the regulations that govern how our email marketing practices must work. We're not going to get into all of them right now. Amongst other provisions, all recipients on your email list must have a visible and operable way to unsubscribe from your messages. And your emails also must contain and have contact accurate from lines. Okay, so that's something that I want you to think about. So today, we're going to go through a bunch of things. We're going to go through, as we do in a lot of our teaching here, we're going to go through some common terms, some key terms, teach you some of the language around this. We're going to go through best practices. Lots of things that if you're going to launch a email campaign that I want you to think about. And finally, we're going to go through some things to think about when it comes down to choosing an email tool. One of the most common questions we get, for example, at Cats Cove is, should I use MailChimp? Should I use Constant Contact? What about other things? What about HubSpot? What about this? What about that? What's the best way for me to get in touch with these subscribers that not only allows me to really do some important work with them and really become a key part in their life and in their purchasing journey, but also, frankly, from the standpoint of saves me time, saves me money. What's the most effective for me as a business owner? So we're going to go through some of those at the end. I'm not going to make suggestions. I am merely going to give you some things to consider and think about when it comes down to that. Okay, so let's go through some key terms here. So acceptance rate. The acceptance rate is the percentage of emails that you send out that are accepted by your recipient's email server. So it's deliverable rate, I guess, is another way to put it. It doesn't always mean that it made it into an inbox. It certainly doesn't mean somebody opened it, but it does mean that it didn't bounce back. So it does mean that you did not get flagged and rejected for some reason. When we talk about bounce rate, what we're actually talking about are the emails that aren't accepted by the email servers. And there's hard bounces and soft bounces. Sometimes it's that you got flagged as spam and you got sent back. Sometimes it's you have the wrong email address in there. We're going to talk about different ways to avoid high bounce rates throughout our best practices. Most of our best practices are actually centered around the idea of creating a higher deliverable, a higher acceptance rate, and a lower bounce rate. Click-through rate. Likely in your email that you're sending out, you're not just sending it out merely to inform. You're sending it out with the idea of getting people to click through and end up on your website or some other place that we can talk to them. Different click-through rate is different than conversion rate. Conversion rate is the number of people that follow through. So click-through is the people that click on the link in your email, and conversion rate are the people that not only end up on your website or wherever you sent them, but actually do the action you want from them, whether they start shopping, whether they sign up for something, whatever it might be. They might download a free thing, something. That's what we're looking for when we talk about conversion rate. Double opt-in. What's a double opt-in? Well, oftentimes, right, when you sign up on a website, you actually get that email to then confirm your email address, right? Can you confirm this? That's one of the ways that we reduce bounce rate, is if you didn't receive that confirmation email as the subscriber, you may have put your email address in wrong. It also helps us comply with the idea of CAN-SPAM, and it helps us ensure that the people that are going to be on our email list really, really want to be there. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about list segmentation. What does that mean? Well, if you've joined us for any of our other information around Google ads, Facebook ads, segmenting audiences, audience creation, that's really what we're doing with list segmentation. So let's assume, for the sake of argument, that you have 1,000 people on your email list. I want you to separate that list into groups. Now, they can be in the same phase of the funnel, so they can be people that have just joined your email list versus people that have been on your list and have been purchasers for several years. Or we can segment them into what we know anyway, male, female, ages, things like that. We have that opportunity with some of these programs as well, assuming you collect that data. List segmentation means you can send targeted emails, not just to your 1,000-person list, but to 100, 200, 300 people groups within that list as well. And this will increase open rates and conversion rates and things like that. As we keep going through key terms, and believe it or not, I mean, I cut many key terms out of this. We want to talk about open rate. This is the percentage of emails you send out that are opened by their recipients. Now, if you've done any studying, so to speak, any listening over the years with regards to open rates, you would have heard, and correctly so, that open rates are going down. For those of us that were around when email first became popular, and we all kind of signed up for our first whether it be Hotmail addresses or whatever, right? We used to think of email as, it was almost like getting mail, right? It was one of those things that when we got mail, when we got an email, it was a big, big thing. At the time, we got junk mail. And marketers, and keep in mind, and I say this as a marketer, marketers ruin everything. We had not ruined email yet. We had not flooded your inbox yet. So the open rate used to be very, very high. Now an average open rate, if you're sending out emails, a good open rate is 20% or above. 1 in 5 people will open it, let alone do something with it. And that 20% is up 3 or 4% in part because of the pandemic we're in. People are at home more often. People are spending more time on their phones and their computers interacting through email that way. We're going to talk about opt-outs. To unsubscribe to an email, it's required that you provide a very clear way and that you honor removal requests when they occur. Now, if you're using platforms, you can automate that process for the most part. If you're not, you have to honor that and do it manually as well. And finally, one of the terms that you're going to hear around email marketing is the idea of spam. I think most of us know this is junk mail, messages that are unsolicited, unwanted, and filtered out of the inbox. Now, your emails can be classified as spam if they're sent to recipients who didn't opt into hearing from you. Your emails also are more likely to be considered spam depending on how other people are reacting to your emails. So if you have a lot of people marking them as junk or flagging them or just not opening them, and you're doing some of the negative practices that might be out there, you are more likely to actually have me get your email flagged as spam when you send it to me. So it's very important when we talk about our best practices that we understand this isn't just about conversions. This is about future preparation for your email marketing as well, to ensure that others aren't going to be flagged as spam. So those are some of the terms you're gonna hear me use, or as you continue to do research going forward, you will hear as well. So let's talk about why email. I mean, there are so many options for how you can get in touch with your customers. We've got social media, we've got search engines, we have traditional marketing and media, radio and newspaper and things like that. Why email? Well, believe it or not, for every dollar spent on email marketing, there's a return on investment, an ROI of $38 for every dollar that you spend. People use email more than other platforms. It is very difficult, especially if you're doing business to business, to have a business without an email address. I don't know how you would do it effectively. And so because people use email more than other platforms, I want you to consider, what's the good of marketing to someone if they're not there? We know people are using email. There are actually 4 billion email users in the world. Hence those numbers of how many are being sent each day. It makes sense. If there's 4 billion email users in the world, your audience is likely there as well. Why email? You own the connections in email. You don't have to worry about algorithm changes tanking your reach. You're not at the whim of how your social media feed is going to display that day. You're not at the mercy of somebody else outbidding you for search engine marketing search terms. You're also not you're not competing against other people in search engine optimization. If I signed up for your email list, I want to hear from you. So that's one of the reasons why email. Lots and lots and lots of different options that are out there with regards to email programs. I'm just listing a few here. Constant Contact and MailChimp are probably the 2 largest ones that I believe people use. There's Sendinblue, there's Drip, ConvertKit, MooSend. It's not Moose End, it's MooSend, and Aweber. These are some very popular email programs. Realistically, MailChimp's probably one that we've all heard of. There's a reason for it. It offers a free program to get started. So it's definitely something I would suggest you take a look at. Constant Contact is there as well. But when you do your research, and we're going to talk about some of the things to look at when you do your research, I want you to recognize that you may find that one of the other ones, or perhaps one that's not on the list. I mean, if you're using CRMs, customer relationship management tools like HubSpot, they will allow you to do a fair bit of emailing through there as well. So we know why. We've got an idea, a list of places to start Googling and searching, programs to start searching. So let's make an assumption that we're ready to start emailing, but we're not sure what we should be doing when we're doing so. And we're going to jump into some best practices. Number one, somebody signs up for your list, somebody joins, you've created a list out of people that you've been emailing informally for some time. The number one thing that I want you to recognize is I want you to send welcome emails. It's the most effective message you can send. Welcome emails are also going to help you keep your list clean and improve your email deliverability. What do I mean by that? Well, as soon as I sign up for your email list and you send me a welcome email, if I accidentally entered the wrong address and I put 2 B's in Toby, it's going to bounce back. It's going to generate what we call a hard bounce, and it's going to tell you this email address doesn't exist. I don't know who this is. That notifies your email provider to remove it from your list. And they also means that your new email recipients, if it does come through, I know my sign up worked. And the information that I signed up for is on its way. Whether that's going to be monthly deals from retail or new menu items as a restaurant or new programming that you might be offering as a service. I know it's on its way. They also immediately help you connect with new subscribers. You can offer something valuable or exclusive at the beginning of this journey, and you can actually really watch your click-throughs really increase. These welcome emails, I mean, again, remember, we talked about open rates on average are 20%. Your open rate for a welcome email is above 80%. And your click-through rate, rather than 1, 2, 3% where people are acting, ends up being 22 to 25%. It's also a relationship manager thing. You realize when you get that email that it wasn't just about collecting my email address. It had more to do with that. You're immediately interacting with me. So sending that welcome email is the first thing that you need to think about. You do need to think about sending it at the right time. Okay. Every marketer, and I want you to think of yourself as a marketer when we're talking about email marketing. You probably don't traditionally do that, and that's fine. But everybody wants their newsletter, their emails, whatever it is you're sending out to be at the top of the inbox. Most subscribers, right? Most recipients are going to pick the emails they see first. And so we want to talk about when you should send your emails. Now, if you're using a program, whether paid or not, they will often have an algorithm that they kind of tell you, you're based on what I'm seeing here, you've sent 10 emails. People like to open it between 9 and 10 in the morning. People open between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. in the morning, whenever it is, right? So there's a send time algorithm that exists out there in a lot of software. But if you aren't using a program like that, or yours doesn't have that, that's fine. Just keep testing. Think about when you think they would be most likely to see it, and think about your own habits again, which means if you're not using the algorithm, I want you to consider sending it early in the morning, as soon as you can, or maybe late at night. The idea being it's there when I open my phone or my email client first thing. You're top of mind that way is what we're searching for, right? So I keep it simple, always keep testing, and try some different times and see what happens. Try sending them at 11 p.m. Try sending them at 4 a.m. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And then think about what the purpose of that email is as well. You want to think about when people will be purchasing. So if you're only sending once a month, for example, and we're going to talk about frequency here, but you know that it's at the end of the month when people are more likely to do whatever it is you're asking them to do, well, then consider those things, right? You want to adjust your send time to match the behavior and needs of your client. And when we talk about all of this, we're going to talk about frequency. So you need to know and get a sense as to how often you should contact your subscribers. I always hear from the business owner, I don't want to bother people. And I understand you don't want to bother people. However, I'm also going to tell you that people subscribe and thus they're asking to hear from you. And if we look at mailing frequency data, we actually see that people who send one newsletter, one email a week, get the highest average open and click-through rates. About 49% of the accounts looked at in this particular study only send one a week. So it's a popular strategy. The one a week, also though, keep in mind, does not include like triggered emails or things like that. So it doesn't include if I'm checking out on your e-commerce store. It doesn't include your order or, hey, you forgot your shopping cart, stuff like that. From an other frequency standpoint, just to kind of give you some context, about 20% of people studied send 2 a week, 9% send 3. And then as we get up into 4 and 5 emails a week, respectively, we're looking at 5 and 4%. So we also need to look at though, and once you get this all set up, is not just who's opening and how often you should be sending things. I also want you to consider things like total number of conversions. So how many people did you get to take the action you want? And think about it that way. There's all kinds of things that you need to take into account when it comes to frequency. How many people are going to leave your list if you email them too often? How much is it going to cost to replace those leads? Things like that, and stuff like that. There are two. If you're not going to find the perfect sweet spot, I should say, there are two things to consider. There's under mailing and over mailing. So you can actually email people too infrequently. So believe it or not. So that could lead to missed revenue, lower lifetime value. You've got no inbox presence. It's like not posting enough on social media, right? I forget about you because you only send once a quarter, once every 6 months. It means that I'm not going to have a clean list as the sender because I'm not sending enough emails to kind of keep those leads updated. It actually also means, believe it or not, it's going to be harder to avoid spam traps, because my inbox looks at your email once every 6 months and goes, well, if it's only every 6 months, I believe that's spam. And then this one's a little counterintuitive. Under emailing can lead to increased complaint rates. I know it doesn't make sense, does it? But think about it this way. If you only pop up every 6 months and you're not providing value every 6 months, I'm more likely to complain. I'm more likely to flag you as spam in that case. Now, the big mistake that we all think of when we think of emailing is we think of overmailing, right? And overmailing is going to lead to decreased engagement, increased opt-outs, reduced visibility for everybody that way. And obviously none of these things are what you want. So here's a couple of interesting stats. Listen, first of all, there is no clear winner for optimal mailing frequency. A lot of it comes down to what are you sending? How much information are you providing? What value am I getting as the recipient? Something to keep in mind, most people are actually able to tolerate 4 to 5 emails a week before my complaint rate increases. Doesn't mean I'm opening, doesn't mean I'm not getting annoyed. I'm saying 5 emails a week. Now, that number is a bit extreme. If you ask me, I wouldn't say let's start sending 5 a week. I'm merely saying this is what the stats show. So it's important to kind of think about that. So you're probably not emailing as often as you think you are, because think about your own inbox, your own personal one, as much as it might be filled with lots and lots of things. Because it's filled with lots and lots of things, the guy or the gal that emails you daily might actually be lost. You might not be aware that they're in there as often as they are. So all of that to say, there is no perfect way to do it. Again, this goes back to test, 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 test. But one a week is kind of the accepted practice. About 50% of people send one a week. It doesn't matter if you send once a month or once a quarter. All the practices we're going to talk about are going to hold true. So we figured out how often, we're figuring out when to send them. We want to consider what our sender name is. So it's very, very important, right? I mean, what's your brand name? Your first impression matters, okay? Email marketing, your first impression might be the only impression you make. Somebody might unsubscribe or get rid of you. They might not open your email. So if your email name doesn't stand out and build some trust, you need to think about it that way. If you ignore somebody's newsletter, so this is just for your own knowledge, if you ignore in your Hotmail or Gmail account somebody's newsletter, somebody's emails enough times, it might start to tell the server that this is junk mail, and those emails end up in your junk inbox. So that's why paying attention to the sender name is a best practice. It is your brand name. Your customers are going to respond to it. Then they check out the subject line and the pre-header, and we'll talk more about those in a little bit, or they might just open it right away. So whatever your sender name is, obviously, as you can see here, we either want a name or a brand name in there, and we want people to know what's in it. So you take these ideas, you compare them with your brand voice guidelines, and you A/B test them. What does A/B testing mean? It means you send out different versions of this. So of all the examples that I have in brackets there, brand name, employee name, at brand name, so on and so forth. You want to try different versions of it. And then you want to see which one got the most opens. And then you want to stick to that one. And this is really important because especially when we're talking about brand name, people are going to get used to seeing that same name. So when I know in my inbox what your email looks like, and if I know what it looks like, I have a familiarity with it. If you end up continuing to change it, it might not be immediately connected with your brand. So when you consider how many emails you get each day, you need to recognize the one you see. You also need to think about your sender address and where you're sending it from. Are you sending it from info at? Are you sending it from Toby at? Are you sending it from payments at? What else are you sending it from? That actually will build its own reputation in the eyes of your internet service provider as well. And if you change it too often, that might affect whether or not the email provider accepts your emails as well. So you don't want to change things too often. And you want to make sure that it's sent from a company domain if possible, not just a Gmail or a Yahoo account. And you want to make sure you're using a trustworthy address in all of that. So I know there's a lot in there. You want to make sure that the name makes a good first impression, is recognizable. And once you find one that works, you don't want to change it a bunch of times. I get a lot of emails that have no reply at in them. The no reply address is obviously a little ironic. I mean, email's meant to be communication, and yet somehow your newsletter is very clearly sending me a message that you don't care enough about me or any of the other subscribers to actually check this inbox. You're telling me don't reply to it. And I understand if it's a triggered one or there's nobody monitoring it. I get that. But it's completely counterintuitive, right? So a lot of people swear that their customers, their clients are at the center of their business. They care about the opinions and feedback, both positive and negative, all those things. And then you use an email address that just tells people we don't actually care. And I understand why. The volume of auto reply and out of office messages that happen in those moments can absolutely be wildly overwhelming. and it doesn't seem like something that's worth it from your end. But consider what that message says. Imagine if your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your Twitter, any of those things had a very clear message in them as well that you were not available. Like it's I'm on your Facebook page, but it's clear that you just say, please don't contact us. We're not interested. No reply says the same thing. It's not helpful to you. The benefits of ditching that no reply address will outweigh the negatives. And if you're not somebody that's dealt with that or has done that before, wonderful, thank you. That's great. If you are somebody that's done it, please keep that in mind. And if you're setting up your first email account or your first email campaigns, please, 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 please do not use a no reply address when doing so. I want you to actually test your email subject lines. So the studies show that 50% of us decide whether or not we will open that message based on the subject line. And it makes sense, right? I mean, again, think about your inbox. There's 1,000 things in there. We're talking about 4 billion users and how many emails are sent each day. So let's assume that we're going to set aside all the people that open every email that you send them, because they don't necessarily count in this scenario. Most recipients generally see 3 things that you send through before they decide to open or ignore your message. Who's it from? So back to sender name. Who's it from? What's the subject and what we call the pre-header? Okay. And depending on that email client and settings, they might see some filters and labels, but really the subject line is one of the biggest things that we need to consider. So how do we write effective email titles? Take some time with them. Treat them as the most important element of your email campaign, because it doesn't matter how beautifully worded the rest of your email is or how enticing your offer is. If you want me to click through later, but I never open your email, yeah, there's a 0% chance. So don't make it the afterthought. Don't just hastily craft it. If you're selling something, say affordable this, whatever you might need to do, and set some time aside to A/B test your lines. Again, I want you to test these email subject lines. Use data, not your gut feeling. I never want to hear, and it's not that I'm dismissing how you feel about this, but I never want to hear, I just feel that we're bothering people, or I feel like this works better. That's fine. I'm going to ask you what the numbers show, because your data will tell you whether or not people are opening. Try personalization, try emojis, be creative. There's lots of these things, right? All these things are shown to have an effect on email open rates. Think about copywriting, all of these things. Test your email subject lines, because half of the people are going to decide whether or not they open that message based solely on that. Use the confirmed opt-in. So when we talked about confirmed opt-in or a double opt-in, I want you, before you sign up to receive my newsletter, I want you to have to actually go through and confirm, yes, I wanted to receive your email. And so here's the traditional conversation I have with somebody here. Won't it make my list smaller? Yeah, probably. Won't people be angry at having to click this link to get my emails? Some might. So why would we say we want a double opt-in or confirmed opt-in? Well, because the benefits outweigh the costs, okay? It's better to have 10 good customers than 50 bad ones. Quality always beats quantity. And most of us are scared because we think quantity, when we think about social media, when we think about those things, we think quantity, how many followers, how many subscribers, how many this, that, the other. We think quantity is what matters. I promise you it's not. You would rather have 10 good clients and customers than 50 poor ones. Think about it from a retail standpoint, right? We would much rather have 10 people come into our store and buy than we would ever rather have 50 people come in and browse. That's what we're thinking of. Okay. Use the confirmed opt-in. Make people do it again. It will make your list much more manageable. It'll make it much easier. You'll get far fewer bounce backs and things like that. And you'll actually get higher click-through rates. You'll have an engaged group of people. You gotta, I mean, again, we talked about spam legislation and other stuff. You need to make unsubscribing easy. You just do. This is listen, if you make it difficult and you hide the unsubscribe button, or you make them go somewhere else to do it, there are places that make you download the app to unsubscribe or make you open up something else. All of those things, your best case scenario is you're just going to get ignored. Because if I'm trying to unsubscribe, I just don't want your information anymore. That's your best case scenario, is you're being ignored. Worst case scenario is you get reported as spam. And I'm not talking government legislation side or anything like that. I'm talking they're just going to flag you as spam. Well, when an internet service provider, a Simpatico or Rogers, anybody, when anybody gets enough emails flagged as spam coming from a certain server, guess what? They start to flag it as spam across the board. So make unsubscribing easy. Somebody doesn't need the offer anymore. They want off the list. Think of your own email habits, your own inbox that way. We need you to think of it that way, okay? As I'm realizing, I've made a mistake in my numbers here, but we're going to jump from 8 to 10, obviously, into what we call lead magnets. So lead magnets, listen, there's tons of competition out there. Regardless of what industry you're in, you have competition. So building these lists aren't as easy as they once were. So your lead magnet is like, listen, incentives, freebies, bribes, whatever you want to say, right? So from a Cats Cove standpoint, if we want to build our email list, maybe we're going to run a promotion on social media that says, want to know the 15 best practices when it comes to sending out emails? Sign up here and we'll send you a free PDF. You put your email address in, you get a presentation similar to this, or a link to something like this. That's what a lead magnet is. Not going to work for everybody, I get that, but at the end of the day, you need to think about what you're going to give away to get people to sign up. Again, marketers ruin everything, right? Many marketers have abused what we will call a privilege of getting into the subscriber's inbox. The best way I saw it described once was being in somebody's inbox is like being invited to somebody's house for dinner. If you were invited to somebody's house for dinner, you would treat it with respect. You would be polite. You would be gracious. You would treat it as a privilege to be there. That's what we need to treat our emails as, right? So when we think about lead magnets that way, and we understand that people have made it very challenging because they've abused it, you might have a bunch of visitors that think twice before filling out a form just for the sake of filling out a form. And you need to offer an incentive to get over that hesitation. And you need to also probably have, again, back to testing, 2 or 3 ideas that you can give away, okay? Because you want to ABC test them and see, is it the free calendar that you send out? Is it the downloadable PDF? What is it that you're going to want to give away, and what will work best? I know. Everything's about testing in this one, right? In this webinar, but I need you to test and preview your emails before you send. I need you to read through it and see if it makes sense. We've all seen these emails that have a bad subject line, something that doesn't display, personalization that doesn't hit. They call you Emma, but your name is Bob. The one that says you look great in a dress, but you wear cargo shorts. Or the ones that just have so many images that don't display properly, you don't know where to look. Those kinds of things. So take your time to look at your emails, make sure they won't land in the junk folder because stuff's not showing up properly, and I mean, realistically, send the message to yourself before you send it anywhere else. Because sending it out to 1,000 people and not knowing what it looks like, back to the idea of brand, this is your brand, folks. This is your brand. Sending it out without knowing what it looks like, you wouldn't do that otherwise. You wouldn't have somebody create a poster for you and never look at the poster and just go, yeah, put it up all around town. I'm sure it's fine. What happens if your phone number's wrong? What happens if the email address you have in there is wrong? What happens if the click-through link that you put in there goes to the wrong spot? You got to test these emails before you send them. Accessibility is a big thing in 2022 and will be going forward, whether it be your website. And on a side note, please make sure your website is accessible because that's becoming a government regulation thing. And it's easy to forget as more and more people jump online that your audience is diverse. You want to make sure that your marketing messages are not just like, we're not just talking about segmenting anymore and personalizing and making sure that Bob is called Bob and not Emma, or that you're sending it to the right people. You have the diverse audience. You want to make sure the marketing messages are accessible. Your subscribers are going to want to make sure that it's accessible too. They signed up, they want to be able to read it. So, add alt text to your images. That means screen readers can understand it better. Add a period after that image text. The screen reader will actually pause in that moment. So it's easier to understand your email. If you're not somebody with accessibility issues, I still know that we've all gone to websites or read emails that were difficult to read. It was black on black or dark text on dark backgrounds, things like that, and it doesn't pop up. If I used a different color of blue in this presentation on the blue background, it wouldn't pop. Even as we go through, you've seen it's been consistent. It's been some black, but sometimes I do jump the white. The idea is it's all meant to pop in the same way. It's meant to be easy for you to read, hopefully. That's what we're thinking about when we're talking about accessibility. How easy is it for somebody to read it? Because again, if your subject line gets my attention and then I can't actually read what's in there, you lost me and you've lost my faith and my trust at that point. We've talked about pre-headers. And as you might remember, we said that we talked about the idea of sender name and subject line is super important. And the pre-header is the third thing that people see. So if half of your subscribers are opening your message on that subject line alone, which is what we talked about, the rest of them are making a decision based on other things. And so they're going to see the sender name first, but the pre-header still plays a part. So this is the case for, email campaigns with short subject lines as well, because the pre-header is going to take up a lot of the space. And our pre-header, believe it or not, messages with pre-headers have an average open rate of around 29%, which is 7% more than emails without pre-headers. But only 11% of messages put a pre-header in. So pay attention to that pre-header. It's the third thing we're looking at. So again, it's one of those things that when we're making a decision as to whether or not you're trustworthy, it's one of the three things that we evaluate. So please, please, please pay attention. If you're using software, there's a spot to put it in. Please, please, please use pre-headers. Make your emails skimmable. We are busy. We're distracted by different things, people, marketing messages. Our inbox is filled with stuff. If I open it up, make it skimmable for me. Have bullet points, headlines, list, pre-header text. Like I said, right? The message that explains what the email is about. All of these things. We want to communicate our message as quickly as possible. So structure your content, like I said, with bullet points, headlines, lists to clearly and quickly state your main message. If you do that well, you'll see an increase in your email engagement metrics like click to open rates and things like that. Don't make us scroll all the way to the bottom to find the offer or to understand the offer. 1 or 2 sentences, cover everything that matters in a highly visible place. It saves me time as the reader, and it lets you quickly capture the attention of those who are in, let's say, the buying mood, the conversion mood. So it's a simple yet effective tactic, and it's definitely something worth adopting. It's hard because it feels like we're not doing our message justice. But again, think of your own practices. You want to open that email and go, huh, that's absolutely that's like I've consumed the entire thing immediately, and it's absolutely something I want or I don't want. You want to be able to do it quickly. So we talked about segmenting your audience. Listen, sending a blast to the entire list is certainly going to work from time to time. You're also probably going to send an email targeted to a certain group of people in that list that aren't necessarily interested. Your chances of generating any kind of conversion or sale from that campaign is much lower in that time when you send it to everybody. It's much higher when you create personalized content designed for certain customer segments. It's the old rule: 20% of your customers will generate 80% of your revenue. Restaurants, you guys know this. If you've got customers that come back over and over and over again. Retail, you've got people that come back over and over and over again. We know who our key customers are. They're going to be the same in your audience. So if you're using a tool that allows you to segment that audience, have your best customers, your frequent flyers, your loyalty segment, have that, and make sure that they're getting messages targeted just for them, not just all the email blasts that you're sending to me who hasn't opened your email in 6 months, things like that. Have you ever got those emails from people that say, hey, we must be bothering you because you haven't been opening any of our emails? I've gotten those before. That is specifically targeted to a segment of people that are ignoring emails. Makes sense. It also almost always leads to me being like, huh, you're right, I haven't been opening these. I'm going to open this one. It's funny how when you segment your audience, you can create tailored offers to those segments. So your most engaged subscribers, see how much revenue they're generating, target them with separate campaigns. If you're not sure exactly who those are and you don't have the metrics to kind of identify it, this is where I would say go with your gut a little bit. Go to the ones that you can think of at the top of your head. You'll be able to identify them without a lot of additional research that way. It's likely you're going to see higher results in open rates and things like that if you really spend some time to nail down that segmentation, though. Those are some of the best practices that I really want you to think about. Again, once we post this online, or perhaps this is where you've already seen it, you'll be able to use this information and it'll all be here. So that's obviously, it's a lot of information I'm aware of, but those are some of the best practices when it comes to email. However, for those of you that haven't started, we're going to talk about comparing email platforms right now. And we're going to talk about the things to consider when comparing those platforms. So again, we talked about these, right? The MailChimp, Constant Contact, et cetera, of the world. This is what we're talking about. So automation, deliverability, a registration form, A/B testing, and design. So these are things that you need to consider when you're researching which platform to use. These are the things that you want to make sure. It's like if you're buying a house, right? How many bathrooms, how many bedrooms, how old's the furnace, when was the roof replaced? This is your checklist that you're going through. So email automation helps you create and send those emails to a whole list of recipients in one go. It's going to use set triggers to determine the type of email sent. It can be as involved as you want it to be, but the idea is it's obviously going to be tedious to manually design and send an email to every person that signs up. You don't want to spend your time doing that. You don't want to pay somebody to do that. That's not what you're interested in, right? But with automation, it's going to send that welcome email as soon as somebody signs up. Okay, that's what we want to do. It's going to ensure that's working. Deliverability is going to ensure that we are distributing appropriate content. And I don't mean anything scandalous that way. I just mean we're going to ensure that the program that you use, you want to make sure that it has something in place to determine abuse detection, unethical practices in email campaigns. Why is all of this important? You're saying, Toby, I would never do this. It actually contributes to a high deliverability rate. You want to make sure that the platform you're using has something in place to ensure that the deliverability is going to go through. You want to reach 96 to 99% of the people on your list. You don't want it to just let you send everything through, but you're only going to reach 70% of the people because everything else gets filtered out as spam. We need to make sure that that's there. A lot of these platforms will allow you to create registration forms. So it's a great way to check on people's interest in your offers on your website. They can make your business, you can make it so it spams a host mailbox as well. So it's going to reflect poorly. So you want to make sure that with a registration form, that it's got one that makes sense to you and that you're going to be able to have your customers sign up clearly. A/B testing, we've talked about. Email marketing lets you test different variations of the email, whether it's subject line, segmentation, headers, images, calls to action, send time. You can send the same email out. Again, you got 1,000 people. You can send it out at 1 to 10 people, at 2 to 100 people, at 3 to 500 people. You can do it however you want that way. With design, a lot of the platforms have templates that already exist, so you can use those. Some have wonderful customization techniques, some don't. Again, it's something that you just need to be aware of and look at. You also want to know about the reporting. The success of your email campaigns in the future will depend on the insights provided initially on what works and what flops. This is going to give you the opportunity to get better and grow and take advantage of future campaigns. Your marketing efforts also will become more successful with integrations. So for example, if you use HubSpot as a CRM and it integrates with MailChimp, it means all your customers that exist in your customer database can be emailed from MailChimp. These integration tools can make email marketing more effective in a lot of places. E-commerce platforms, for example, help you take all that customer information to segment target audiences. So we know people that have bought things. If we're collecting birthdays, we can send birthday and anniversary reminder messages, things like that. There's lots of interesting ways to use integration. Some of these platforms have hundreds and hundreds of other things that you can integrate with. That's really important as well. I want to just a quick side as we continue here. There are website platforms, CMSs, that also have these tools that you can integrate and then integrate in. So you might have a lot of these integrations and email capabilities already through your website. So that's something to look at as well, okay? Pricing, listen, simple enough. There are multiple options out there from free to paid, depending how big it is, depending what your plans are. It's like everything in life, right? Whatever you pay for, you're going to get value for it. MailChimp has a wonderful free starter that eventually you have to scale up and start paying for some of the other integrations and things like that. There are lots of other good ones that start for free. Pricing is simple enough. Know what it is, right? Ease of use. How easy is it to do? Can you drag and drop? How much time do you have to dedicate? Do you have to pull somebody off another project to send these email campaigns? How easy is it to set up and how easy is it to maintain? And then listen, support, like anything in life, right? Good customer support creates this positive experience for buyers. This provides value to you and it retains all the customers and promotes endorsements for your brand, things like that. You need to know that whether it's whatever program you're using, has significant support in place. It's a lot of information for email, and I'm aware of that. At the end of the day, believe it or not, it's a super effective way to still connect with your customers. social media, search engine ads, pay-per-click advertising are all essential parts of this equation, okay? They can help people get to your site or to your social media. The loyalty, that 20% of your customers that become 80% of your revenue, will be built with constant engagement. Email marketing needs to be something that you have in mind, and it becomes a really effective and useful touch point. It doesn't need to always be conversion, but it becomes a really effective and useful touch point for you to connect with and engage with customers, both new and old. Thank you very much for your time. I know that was a lot of information, a lot of things to think about as you get set up and started with your own email marketing campaign. If you have any questions, we have an email address there, info@catscopecommunications.com. There's our website. Please check us out there, or give the office a call or a text at 613-812-8846. Again, my name is Toby James, the owner of Catscope Communications. I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much, and good luck with your email campaigns.